I am part of the jury of the CII Excellence Awards for 2017 and 18. And we are now trying to explain the participating companies on the various criteria which we will be using when the assessment teams go to the various companies for doing an assessment. And the basic objective is to determine how far the plant and the companies have moved in their excellence journey in EHS performance. The basic fundamentals of the excellence when we look at as a part of these EHS Excellence Awards is that we expect the sites to have implemented the management systems, can be certified or not certified, different criteria. It has to be aligned with the relevant standards. For example, ISO 14001, it can be OSHA's 18001, it can be any other equivalent standards. And it is written down, it is applied in accordance with the documentation, and it is effective in terms of its implementation, and it is also adequate when it is compared to the objectives which are laid down. So there are 4 stages in the evaluation process. The assessment teams check whether the systems are adequately defined and they are coherent, whether they are implemented effectively, and whether they are implemented across all areas under the control of the company. The last one is more to do with the sustainability and how far this journey is moved in terms of sustaining the efforts and also in terms of sustainable development. The various sectors which are covered under this are spread over 4 states, 4 southern states, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Kerala. And this covers various industries, various service sectors and various kinds of establishments. So we identify the best performance in each of these states, and finally the awards will be distributed based on the criteria small, medium and large. Now I would request Veda to explain what exactly is the categorization which is used for small, medium and large. Veda? Hello?
Yes, sir. Tell me.
Hello?
Sir. Yes, sir. Tell me, sir.
No, I asked Veda to explain the fundamentals of how the categorization is done with reference to small, medium and large, okay, so that the company is clear about it.
Okay, so you can continue. We can hear and everything is going good. You can continue.
Okay, right.
Thanks.
The screening methodology, what we adopt in terms of the assessment is the formal application review, which is already done, and we have now scheduled the companies for doing the assessment. And there will be some communication which will be coming from the central team of the CII, part of this EHS Excellence Awards. They will coordinate with the companies and then they will set up the date and assessors who will be doing the assessments. Normally it will be 1 day of assessment per site, and if it is a large site then there may be 2 people going into the assessment. If it is a smaller site, it may be only 1 person who is going to do this assessment. So we expect when this assessment team goes to the plant or the company, we expect a brief presentation by the company, roughly about 1 hour duration, explaining the various facets of what they have done in the last 1 year of their EHS journey, so that it gives a flavor to the assessment team on what exactly the company is doing in terms of EHS and sustainability and various other initiatives. We request the companies to keep this as brief as possible, so that more time will be available for the assessment teams to be used in shop floor visits, interviews, interactions, and so on. So the document review also will be done by the assessment team. This may take about 1.5 hours or 2 hours. If these documents are sent beforehand by a soft copy to the CII central team, it may save this kind of, spending too much of time in document reviews. Then it follows the plant visit. Then we have the interactions with the plant personnel. It can be the employees, it can be the staff, it can be the management teams for the remaining part of the day, and then they conclude their observations at the end of the day. Now, the assessment criteria which is going to be used by the assessment teams is one related to safety, one related to industrial hygiene and occupational health, and one in environment. So these grids are composed of various stages, and there are various parameters which are covered under each step. The checkpoints which are there constitute the minimum requirement which needs to be met by the plant, and the rating is based upon how far this implementation effectiveness is guaranteed. Now, when they look at the assessment, they look at all the 3 parameters: environment, health, and safety. When they take it up for the overall rating of the company. So the company is rated purely based on the assessment, which is on site by the team of assessors, and we will have different assessors going into different companies, and we pull up all these assessment criteria together to determine the ranking of the companies. Now, when we ask the sites to send certain information regarding the EHS progress which is done in their plants and establishments, the present slide which is there in front of you gives you an overall picture of what exactly people will expect to read and go through before they come to the plant. So if this is available beforehand, it helps the assessors to have an overall global picture of where the company is before they come, so that they can spend time in terms of interactions, interviews, discussions, than going through the documents in the site. So it can be the policy of the site, it can be the people, it can be the legal and statutory requirements applicable, it can be the risk assessment, objectives and targets, trainings, emergency response, and any other specific guidelines which the company wants to tell the assessors before they come into the plant. For example, if there are speed restrictions in the company, that has to be, if it is told beforehand, then it becomes easy for the assessment teams to be following the rules of the company. Then when they come inside the assessment, inside the plant for doing the assessment, we expect the plants to deliver a presentation to the assessors roughly about 1 hour time, And briefly, it can contain some information regarding the emergency response, which is there in the plant, that normally which site gives to any visitors, roughly about their process or the production, service and activities which are carried out, what are they into, and objectives and targets. It can be training, it can be on improvement projects which are there, best practices which the company wants to showcase. And on sustainability, resource conservation, water conservation, people management, which refers to sustainability and so on. Please restrict this duration of the presentation to maximum of 1 hour. Don't overshoot beyond this thing, because it will lead to less time being available for the assessors to be in the shop floor and interacting with the people. Then the documents, if these documents are made available beforehand, then the assessment teams will spend little time on this reviews and going through the documents in the plant. I know it is quite difficult for some of the sites to send this, because this will be two big files. Wherever it is possible, it can be a gist of some of these things, how they manage these issues can be communicated beforehand to the assessors. Otherwise, this has to be kept ready so that the assessment teams can go through this quickly inside the plant when they come for the assessment. It can be manuals and procedures, it can be SOPs, it can be risk assessment and statutory compliance reviews, and then management programs, objectives, targets, how they are implementing, who are the people who are implementing, and so on. It can be accidents, incidents, and statistics related with environment, health, and safety, and emergency response, mock drills, mitigation systems, hydrant systems, and so on. And continuing with the same, training and competencies, the behavioral improvement measures, and management review is one of the important aspects. Then the internal audit, etc. Then when they go for the plant round, the assessment half day plus should be allocated for the rounds in the plant, interactions with the people, discussions, and inside the plant with the people who are there working on the machines. There can be staff, it can be managers, it can be workers, it can be employees, any other employees. So that generally the assessment teams will pick up some leads on whether the people are aware, whether they are involved, how they are involved in emergency response, whether they know emergency response measures, the medical emergencies, the risk assessment, do they know hazards, risk aspects and impacts, objectives and plans of the site, and any other operating instructions which are related to their area of work. Briefly, these are categorized under various heads. They look at, when they do the assessment, the various steps involved will be, they look at the implementation of the EHS policy and compliance to the statutory and other requirements, whether the risk assessment is good, dynamic and implemented and it's effective across all areas. Then they look at the objectives and targets, and how the EHS is organized and how the structure and responsibilities are laid out is also looked into. Then they look at the training and competencies related to EHS and emergency and abnormality prevention and response measures. Then how do the people handle the anomalies like accidents, incidents, unsafe conditions and unsafe acts, non-conformities. These are related to all the three domains, the E, H, and S, and also the sustainability angle. Then how the assessments are done, internal audits are done, how the external audits are coped up, and what is the measure, how well the implementations on observations are done, whether it is effective, and whether there is sustainability in this. Then they also look at the performance monitoring of the EHS on various fronts. It can be related to the supplier audits, it can be related to the monitoring of exposures, it can be related to the monitoring of environmental emissions, it can be related to the behavioral monitoring with reference to the implementation of EHS. Then they also look at the management focus and commitment, and the management reviews, control on outsourced activities, there are any liability control measures, any operational controls, and so on. Then they look at the involvement of employees in EHS, how the people who are there inside the company are involved in day-to-day activities of EHS. Then the personal protective equipment, what kind of personal protective equipment, what are the different controls which are there for the use of PPEs, training on PPEs, and so on. Then coming to the assessment on the resource conservation programs and sustainable development initiatives, the various resources which are used by the company in terms of raw materials, it can be in terms of the in-process additions, and how the wastes are being handled, and whether the waste is getting recycled, or the company is also looking at the waste which are generated in outsourced activities, and so on. They also be looking into many of these things purely from the point of view of a sustainable development initiative. Then if there are any specific assessments which are used by the site, also will be looked at. Then how do the sites manage high-risk activities? If there any site, any high-risk activity has been identified, if it is identified, what kind of controls are there and how do they assess the effectiveness of the controls? Then they look at the upkeep of the plant, the facilities and the surroundings. When they go around, they look at various kinds of things, what kind of controls are there with reference to the 5S, with reference to the adequacy of the facilities, the upkeep of the facilities, the asset management in terms of how well the things are presented in terms of its appearance, its aesthetics, its durability, consistency, and so on. So these are the overall 20 stages of criteria which are assessed when the assessment teams go into the plant. When they go to the shop floor, the site of operation or the site of service area, if they look at various parameters, and there can be interactions related to something depending upon the interest envisaged by both the site and the assessors. Can be related to cleanliness, lighting, ventilation, heat stress, cold areas, ladders, machines, interlocks, PPE, statutory compliance, and how well the visual depiction of many of these requirements are there in the plant, and pollution control devices, material handling devices, lockout and tagout, maintenance, and so on. And handling of waste, housekeeping staff, how do you identify the housekeeping staff, and visitor safety inside the shop floor, and so on. Then how the facilities are maintained, like the drinking water outlets, the water tanks, the overhead lights, the toilets, the restrooms, and so on. So this is generally a framework which the assessment teams use when they visit the shop floor. And the assessment, when the assessment gets completed, the assessment team delivers a report which gives the particulars of the observations and what kind of observation is that. Is it a best practice, or it is a thing which needs to be improved, or is it a positive improvement, positive observation? This kind of report is delivered to the CII central team by the assessment teams. Many of these observations and the points to be improved and so on also gets discussed at the end of the assessment in that site in what we call as closing summarization of the findings at the end of the day. So normally at the end of the day, the assessment team will not be able to give you exactly where your numbers are, because it will take some amount of time. They make notes, and the observations will be delivered, and they come back, and then in a day or two kind of thing, they make the overall rating with reference to the checklist, which is given to them, and then they send it to the CII central team. And based on that assessment percentage, the tabulations are done for all the companies in all the four different states to choose who is the which are the plants which are in the level of 5-star, which are in the level of 4-star, 3-star, 2-star, etc. So this comes to the end of my brief on the assessment criteria and how the assessments are done. And if there are any questions, you can ask me. Hello. 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 Three people are there, 54 people are there out of 100. Hello. Welcome. Hello. Mute ಆಗಿದೆ ಎಲ್ಲರೂ. ಇಲ್ಲ. ಫುಲ್ ಇದೆ. ಇದೆ ನಂದು. Hello? Hello? Do you have any questions? Where do we get that? Chapter. Done.
Audience question.
No, this is old one. Hello, Divakar. Hello. Yeah, no, but I am through with the presentation. How do we get the questions? No, the chat, no? No, there is no questions. Audience question now when we are starting. That's all. No other question is there. But you have to explain them this one, that award criteria. That's small, medium, and large. No, they have not asked me any questions. No, but where is the question? One second. There are many, correct? Yes. See, first one is the people can hear you. and no one can see you. And then the second one is web camera, something is there. Third one is you can stop sharing. Fourth one is pause showing my screen. Then give control, keyboard of control and mouse to attendee, and then make another attendee a presenter. Then there is one drawing tool menu. So no, there is no questions on this set. That is why I was getting worried. Where is that? No, this is different. Audience view, you click that audience view on the top. Click that. No, this is different. What they use. Sharing chat. Yeah. I'll go through that thing again. No problem. Yeah, the date will be told by you. Hello. In the in the control panel, I'll tell you what are there in this. No, I don't have that question. See, people can, first one I'll tell you, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No, 1 second, it went off. Huh? It went off. Hello? It went off again. Oh. Okay, yeah, I can see the questions. So if I type the answer, they will know, or what is that? I have to speak. I have to speak. Okay, right. Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Yes. I'll do that. Thank you. Hello. Now I have the questions on this thing. This is a question from no. This is all different. Okay, meeting has not started. I get it. Yes, here. The session will be live. I could hear. It's good morning. ITC. Also, TF5. Okay. This is from Mr. Ashwin Kumar. TF5. Oh, okay, right. No, that is about the unsafe conditions. It is unsafe conditions and unsafe acts. And could you please display the slide from the beginning again, about 2 seconds, so that I can take the screenshots? Okay, I will do it at the once I'm through with the questions. I will run that thing for your information. And will this presentation be shared with us? I have no problem, but it depends on the CII central team. Veda can take a call on that. When will be the site assessment dates announced? The site assessment dates will start anytime from now, and it may go on till probably in November. And the dates will be tied up with the plant and the assessors. So mutually agreed dates. Any example of specific assessment? No, I don't have right now with me. And I don't have a specific example of a specific assessment. And for the next question, which is by Mr. Sucheta. For office setups like software unit where there is no manufacturing involved, what are the major key points to be concentrated? So this, in the areas where manufacturing is not there, it will be more to do with the sustainability initiatives, how well the emergency responses and all those things are taken care, 5S, upkeep, and the management of contractors, the management of various kinds of issues, lighting, ventilation, and the occupational health, ergonomics, like that. So it is, for example, in the assessment, there are things, the checklist is generally common across, and in the assessment criteria, we have what is called as not applicable. Suppose, for example, if you don't have a machine, and there is a specific question related to a machine, then it will be taken as not applicable. So it won't come in the assessment grid. Any major area of focus the assessment team will look for during the site assessment? I think I explained that in the slide. I will read on that slide again for your benefit. Can you kindly provide the percentage of weightage for documentation in the self-assessment? No, there is nothing like a percentage of weightage. Each question has been derived based on 4 factors: the implementation, adequacy, and effectiveness. So, the documentation is an important aspect of the process, of course, but it is not the only criteria. And possible to share the PPT? Probably yes. Veda can take a call. TF5, I think that is already answered. It is about unsafe conditions and unsafe acts. And different grids. The next question is from Mr. Gopi. Can you please explain if there are any specific weightage ratios allotted for different grids? No, they are all equal. E, H, and S are equal, and each weightages are same. But there will be some weightages which are given for minimum requirement and mandatory requirements. And then if we have to send the documentation before the audit, to whom it has to be sent? This is from Preeti Bhatt. If we have to send the documentation, it has to be sent to the CII central office. So they will give it to the assessors. Is there a differentiation between the companies? It will be based on large, medium, and small. And okay, and then what is the duration of the inspection? This site inspection and the facility interactions and all those things is 1 day for a site. And for a large site, it may be 2 people for a day, or it may be 1 person 2 days. And we could not connect the webinar. I will run through the presentation again at the end so that it becomes easy. And we have a question, TFI, what is the percentage of documentation? I answered. Is there any checklist for assessment? Yes, there is a checklist for the assessment which is given to the assessors. And we have to send the documentation before the audit. I answered this question. It has to be sent to the CII central team. How many assessors will be visiting? It will be one for a small site, maybe two for a bigger site. The focus area for construction industry will be the various kinds of activities which are done in the construction sites. It can be related to the design, it can be related to the safety, work at height, permit to work, lockout and tagout, various handling equipments which will be used, and so on. And the waste which are generated, what do you do with those construction debris and so on. Then how many assessors? It depends on the size of the site. One if it is small and two if it is big. Will you be sending us the checklist of assessment if it is not a plant and it is an office category? No, the assessment checklist assessment criteria will be explained, not the checklist. And this is a general checklist which will have certain things which are not applicable, which will be rated as not applicable. Construction site, I explained. There are checklist, yes. Proportion of weightage for each category in EHS is equal. EH and S are equally distributed. Possible to share the checklist before the audit? No. And you mentioned about ISO standards, health safety standards and policies. Is there is a concern on that? No. See, there is an overall alignment with reference to the ISO standards. The companies will have their own health and safety standards. They may not go into the ISO thing, but it will be aligned to the ISO standards, more or less, or it may be slightly more than the ISO standards. And then on-site assessment document reviewed, it will be the monitoring records of the environmental emissions. You may have the labor monitoring, it may be the health and safety records, so on. Is there a weightage for opening presentation? No, there is no weightage for opening presentation, but you make it good so that it becomes simple for the people to understand what the company is doing and what is it doing. Then we have applied for mining and cement units, a single project, how it will be covered. This question I am not understanding. Is it related to two different locations or it is in the same location? This question is from two different locations. So it depends on which location you have sought for the audit. If it is both the locations, then the assessment will have to happen at both the locations. Then it has to be an assessment of both the locations. So probably it may be a site. Next question is on the. During the start of the assessment, should we have the presentation of the current practices? Yes, if you have the presentation of the current practices and you want to showcase some of the best practices which you have, it would help you. It is good to have that. Then next one is from Mr. Gopi. Sir, you have mentioned the identified housekeeping personnel, and okay. Now there are plants which are quite large, and in such kind of a situation when there are equipments which are being handled and there are housekeeping people separate who are doing that thing, it is always better to have an identification For example, a different colored uniform, or it can be, how do you identify different people in that? That is the basic idea about that. Then the question is from Mr. Shankar Nagpal. Is there a community site visit by assessor to see CSR? Normally no, but if it forms a major chunk of your approach, probably yes. So any other questions? It comes here. No. They are typing. So if there are no questions, I will run this slides again, probably about 3-4 seconds each slide, so that if there is anything which is under mining project where, okay, the question from Mr. Amitav, one application has been made under mining project, then it will be the mining project which will be assessed. So I will run through this presentation again for the benefit of the people again, so that supplier, EHS communication and audit. Okay. See, supplier, there will be suppliers who will be supplying various kinds of raw materials, and there will be various kind of vendors who are there with the companies. And what kind of communications on EHS you will have with reference to the supplier EHS, and what kind of audits you will have to make sure that the suppliers are in line with the requirements defined by you.
What do you mean by MDO?
The application is made. Is MDO or contractor? Yeah, okay. How will it be covered?
Could not understand that word in that word.
No, this question on applicant is a MDO or a contractor.
How it will be covered?
You mean to say that you have applied and you are a contractor for a particular site where you are doing this work?
In questions is very questions is answer now.
Okay. Do you refer? The last question. Do you refer the supplier implementation on EHS practices? Yes.
Yes, of course.
Statutory documents, yes. Yes. The statutory documents will be part of the assessment.
Offline on more. Okay. So answer me. What
are the statutory document that you will be looking at? See, it can be, this is a question from Chandrakant. See, this, we will be looking at the various statutory things like the consents. If you have a large number of contractors, the contractor authorizations, contractor licenses, the factory licenses, and compliance towards that. Majorly in those directions. And medical records. If you have the medical examination done, whether you file those relevant returns to the statutory bodies. What is a typical organization you consider? Now, I didn't understand this question. What, like number of people? No, there is nothing like number of people in EHS organization. It can be some companies will have only one person in EHS. If you talk about the overall organization of the EHS, we look at how many people are actually working towards the EHS. It need not be direct; it can be indirect. And the next question is from Mr. Naveen. In HERA, major risk will show with control.
Or how in assessment?
Can you elaborate on this question, Mr. Naveen? Then will there be any subcontractor or any supplier audits? No, it won't be. If it is possible within the time frame, yes. Otherwise, no.
Understand how they want to show. Assessor will go there.
Is any major risk will highlight? Oh, okay, right. If I understand your question, you are asking me whether in the assessment, if there is any major risk which is identified by the assessors, they will highlight you about that. Yes, they will definitely tell you about a major risk which you need to take care of. And no, I think I explained about this TF5, Mr. Ravi Shankar. I again explain you. TF5 is an indicator. It's a leading indicator. It is more to do with the number of unsafe conditions and unsafe acts which you record in your plants. It can be unsafe health conditions. Related to the exposures of people, for example, high level of noise, high level of exposure to fumes, dust, etc. It can be ergonomic risks, which are identified. They are not accidents and incidents. They are slightly above that in terms of giving you a leading idea on what can be done to prevent an accident from occurring. If there is a question, it will come up here. When will you start the assessment? The assessment will start anytime in the coming weeks or October. And it will be communicated by the CIA central team, Veda, with you and tie up with the assessors. The dates will be mutually agreed dates between the assessors and the audit, the company. In 5 years, what exactly will show? 5 years is all about upkeep. And when the people go around for 5 years audits, they won't do a 5 years audit. They will generally look at how well you have kept your facilities and how well the things are identified. That is, everything is in its place and things are easily identifiable and there is no risk associated with that. Okay, I'll run through this presentation again so that if anybody wants to look at that, they will be able to. Yeah. This is one.
Sledge. Good morning. This transition audit training. So what we are planning in the officer like and she has sent code also.
Go to 14 number slide. Okay. Yes. 14.
Right.
1, 2. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this is slide number 14. Who are the oddities that you want to be available for that day? Generally, who are all the people who are concerned with EHS, the shop floor plant management teams, all concerned relevant. For example, if you have an ISO audit which is happening in your plant or the site, who are the people who will be around? Those are the people who will be there. And slide number 14 is. Okay, 15.
Right.
Can you please explain what? 15. Slide 15 you want me to explain? Can you explain, can you tell me what is your query on the slide? See, this is when they go to the shop floor, normally they look at various kinds of things. And the focus areas for the assessors, when they go into the plant, will be governed by this. And it can be more than this, it need not be as exhaustive as this. It depends on the site. They will look at, when they walk around the plant and when they go around the shop floor, they look for cleanliness, they look how the ventilation is, how the lighting is there any hot areas, what kind of controls, is there any ladder, the ladders and staircases and platforms, how are they, is there any machines, how is the machine guarding, like that. So this is generally an overview of how. Hello? How the just slide that.
Hello? The workers are in one right. I am Rajesh. Fine, sir. Fine.
Mr. Chandrakant, am I clear to you?
Yes.
On this slide? Okay. Lotto is lockout and tagout. This is normally done on energies. It can be electrical, it can be mechanical, it can be hydraulic, it can be compressed air, and all these things. So whenever they take maintenance, then they need to have lockout and tagout. Slide number 15, 9 point is TF5. Slide number 15. 1 second. Where's the TF5 coming? Okay. No, TF5. This is a slide which is prepared by me, and that is why that TF5 indicator has come. TF5 is an indicator of measure which it is related to unsafe frequency. It's related to unsafe conditions and unsafe acts. See, any accident is seen. Any accident, for example, a last time accident or a recordable injury is all seen first, including first aid. Something like near misses and unsafe conditions and unsafe acts are not seen often. I mean, even you have to go and then take a look at your facilities to determine that. They are called leading indicators. So TF5 is one such leading indicators. I mean, this is a terminology which I use, so I have put. I'm sorry for that. It is more to do with unsafe conditions and unsafe acts. Abnormal conditions can be an abnormal condition.
So
pollution control devices. Can you brief on this? These are all the control devices which we use for control of emissions. It can be scrubbers, it can be electrostatic respirators, it can be dust collection systems, it can be fume extractors, and so on. For example, if a diesel generator is there, a pollution control device which is used in that will be a chimney which takes it out, and another statutory requirement will be an acoustic enclosure for that to prevent the noise.
What is the automatic? Session. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಿರಲ್ಲ.
I just now explained about TF5. I'm sorry for the slide. TF5 is my indicator which I use in my company, and TF5 is more to do with the unsafe conditions. It's the number of unsafe conditions which the site can record. It is a leading indicator. It can be related to environment, it can be related to industrial hygiene and health, it can be related to safety. What is traffic management and what is spill control? Spill controls are, for example, if there is any storage of oil, if there can be some spills, how do you control the spills of the oil? And what is the mitigation measure and what is the control measure? And what is the traffic management? The traffic management is all about how do you manage the traffic within your premises. If there are two-wheelers, if there are four-wheelers, if there are trucks which are being operating inside the plant, it may be every day, it can be sometime. Or if forklifts are used, material handling devices are used, how do you manage the traffic? With reference to the control and safety of pedestrians and assets. What are the statutory compliance for a facility related? The statutory compliance related to the facility are in fact to be determined by the site. For example, if suppose a facility has a diesel generator, the statutory requirement related to diesel generator will be there. If a facility has a substation, electricity rules and acts will be covered under that. And if there are people working, then it will be covered by the labor regulations. If there are machines, then it will be also under the Factory Act. If there are contractors, it will be under the Contract Labor Act. So all these statutory compliances will be looked at. If there is a stack, then we look at the monitoring and then the consents which are given by the respective pollution control boards. Is it mandatory to take the electrical contractor license certificate? Yes. The electrical contractor license certificate has to be there with the site because you should not permit any non-licensed electrical contractor to work on the HT installations. And the people who will be doing that wiring should have that wireman license. Okay, thank you. HT and LT transformer, yes, it is mainly for HT and substations, yes, you should have a contractor certificate, license certificate. Licensed contractor should do. It will be looked at with reference to the electricity rules. Calibration certificates, yes. Calibration certificate. You are asking with reference to electrical installations? Yes. Okay. All the you must be doing the annual relay and calibration checks. Do you? Yes. So you will have a detail of that thing which you submit to the electrical inspectorate. That copy should be kept as a reference. If you are doing it, yes. The relay calibration, meter calibration, and all those things, and transformer oil, dielectric strength, checks on various relays, etc. How do we monitor the report? No, it's not the question of monitoring the report. The report is a part of monitoring. You are monitoring, that is why the report is coming. So, is the arc flash assessment a must? Arc flash assessment should be done, yes. It can be done within the plant if somebody is capable of doing such kind of an assessment. What is the record is required for energy conservation? Energy conservation within your company, how do you manage your energy conservation? For example, if the last year's consumption is so many kilowatt hours, in this year how many kilowatt hours, and what are the measures which you are implemented for bringing down the specific energy consumption? So it can be presentations, it can be the visit to the site to find out what exactly you have done, etc. And if you have an evidence of meter readings, it will be well and good. Using chemical for which we need to follow MSDS or TSDS or meeting statutory requirement as per the government norms. Point number one second. This is chemical for which MSDS. See, any chemical which you are using, this question from Mr. Venkatramani. Any chemical which you are using, you should have the safety data sheet. Without having the safety data sheet, people should not use the chemical because you will not know what exactly is the exposure limits, what needs to be done under emergency conditions, how do you handle and dispose the waste, and so on. Government norms, statutory requirement as per the government. There are two types of things in this. One is under the Factory Act and the other one is the MSIHC rules. Manufacture, storage and import of hazardous chemicals. There are two different rules. One is about the quantities and the kind of safety in terms of storage. The second one is all about the safety data sheets. Factory Act requires you to maintain and follow the MSDS. Point number 16. Which slide? This one? Material handling devices. Is it material handling devices? If it is material handling devices, it is all about your forklift. It's all about forklifts, all about tractors and cranes, jeep cranes, overhead cranes, Hydra, and JCB, and so on. They are all material handling devices. Stackers, hydraulic pallet trucks, normal pallets, and so on. Okay, so I hope the things are clear. Okay, there's one more question. Lifting appliances and vehicles, yes. Statutory inspection reports for all the lifting appliances have to be kept. Again, it is as per the inspector of factories.
So we can close this session, Mr. Divakar.
Yeah, we can close.
Yeah.
There's one more question which I'll answer. Is there any record should be maintained for vehicle movement on daily basis? It depends on the kind of vehicles. If there are trucks which are coming in and going out, yes. Cars which are coming in and going out, yes. And if there are material handling devices like forklifts, yes. Not the movement, but you should have a daily checklist on how you maintain that. And then is there any norms on tonnage of heavy items? It is based on the weights and measures, yes. And for staff vehicle also, yes. How many vehicles are coming in and going out and so on. So we can close this session. If there are any further questions, you can mail it to Veda and probably we can answer those questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Was that?